Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's famed state visit to the United States brought with it a series of deals that were inked between the two nations: technology and defense cooperation, the need for dialogue and diplomacy, and invocation of democratic values at the US Congress. That has been the central theme of Prime Minister Modi's state visit. The General Electric HAL jet engine deal was formalized during this trip. US-based semiconductor company Micron will set up a semiconductor assembly and testing facility in Gujarat. Micron, central government and Gujarat together will invest $2.75 billion. The Prime Minister met with tech giant leaders Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, Sam Altman, among others. He also met Indian business leaders including Mukesh Ambani, Anand Mahindra and Nikhil Kamath. Joining us now to discuss the business and economic impact of the Prime Minister's visit to the United States is the Chief Executive Officer of NSC, Ashish Chauhan, Managing Director of Kotak Mutual Fund, Nilesha, and Managing Director of Epsilon Carbon, Vikram Handa. We'll also be joined by Sanjay Nair of Soren Investments. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Nilesha, if I could begin with you, give us a sense of how this trip. Clearly, the US wanted a counter to China in the neighborhood. How do the deals on technology, on defense, really help India grow in the global value chain and global supply chain?
Clearly, India is getting entry into high-tech club. There are very few nations who can make jet engine. Thanks to technology transfer from GE, we will be joining that club. There are few nations which can assemble semiconductor chips. Thanks to Micron investment, we will be getting into that club. There are very few countries which can produce talent for manufacturing semiconductor chips. There is a training program for about 60,000 individuals in India who will be trained on manufacturing of chips. Similarly, there is collaboration on quantum computing, on space research. So clearly, India is getting a place on the high-tech table thanks to all these collaborations. More importantly, China is a clear adversary to India. There are not only military challenge, but also political and supply challenge. Now, India is becoming part of mineral security agreement. This will ensure that critical minerals, especially for new age tech, will be available. We are also forming alliance for 5G and 6G in telecom sector that will provide solution to probably dominance of UAE. A master ship repair agreement will ensure that American naval ships can be repaired in Indian shipyards, and Predator drones which are made available to India, that increases India's maritime capability. Net, this is an alliance which is creating jugalbandi, not only on the commercial side, but also on the security side.
Right. Thank you for those opening remarks. Mr. Chauhan, let me come to you. And we have to ask you about the performance of the markets today first. We saw Nifty and Sensex hitting record highs. What do you attribute the performance of the markets to currently? And do you expect this rally to continue?
I think you should have asked this question to Mr. Nilesha. I think he's a very eloquent spokesperson for the markets. I am being a regulator. I slightly sort of under play those sentiments, but I think it's a great what I call the highest ever. Nifty touched 19,000 today, and I think it's a great moment for India. It's just the beginning, but it's also a reflection on Mr. Modi's visit to US and the outcomes, as I think Mr. Shah mentioned. There are many strategic aspects to this. India was never part of the what I call the strategy orbit of US or Western countries for that matter. So we were usually the buyers of their technology at most, but that also after 20-30 years of their using it. Today, they are taking us as partners into development of these new technologies, whether it's 5G, 6G, but also they are getting us into quantum computing, high performance computing, even space technology, manned flights, LEGO. I mean, I am an engineering student, and in our days we had heard of LEGO, and later on when we grew up, even last 20 years, we have been always thinking that when all these gravitational waves, how we can observe sitting in India, our scientists were actually participating, but using the European infrastructure. Now that is getting set up in India. So there are some really, really strategic tie-ups that have been done. That includes, of course, the drone, that is what I call predator drone, which is going to work almost 80% of the manned flight. In a way, if you're a manned flight, this works 80%, but it flies at 40,000 feet. It's a wingspan of almost 80 feet. And it's able to actually weapons too. So it's a very, very interesting situation. Semiconductor supply chain we have been working on. We have been talking since I was a child. We have not been able to bring any fab to India. Today, with Micron coming, I think it's going to be a great day for India. Google's own announcement for setting up a very large center in GIFT City is another one. GE's jet engine, as I think Mr. Shah mentioned, is a pretty impressive piece of technology. And if India is able to make it, probably at some point, not only the fighter jets, but also we may be able to make the passenger jets and so on and so forth, which China has already launched recently, and we need to be actually competing with them. The other parts, which is less talked about, is what I call resolution. The aluminium and steel industries, which is large part of India's industry, they have been sending a lot of material to US, and there were disputes between India and US on the trade terms, which have been resolved amicably. I think it's another feather in the cap. H-1B visa part, although people may think it's transactional, but it has been a real boon for many Indians who are working there or who are aspiring to work there. And it brings both the countries closer. I think it's as much a victory of the government of both countries, but also the people to people. I think people of Indian origin staying in America and the overall bonhomie just come up is what I think what is impressive, including this antiquities getting returned. Although it may look like a small thing, but it is just telling you that both countries want to now come closer to each other as part of Quad, but also on bilateral basis. And that's what we need to mind.
Mr. Chauhan, I would also like to ask you, how do you think this visit and all the deals, 8 to 10, you really listed out those 7 or 8 sectors and the key deals that were signed, but how does this increase the resilience of India as an economy, and how some of these deals will power the growth of the Indian economy, the Indian stock markets in the years to come?
In a way, defense sector in Indian stock markets is hardly there, barring probably 2 or 3 stocks. You will see with this kind of new deals, you will have many more Indian companies producing small parts, even in Predator drone, which is like highest of high tech. There is an indigenization capabilities requirement of 9 to 10%, I think. And Indian government hopes that it will become 20% over a period. So lots and lots of young Indian companies need to be there. In fact, I think 4 or 5 Indian companies have been actually included in the joint statement also for AI and other things, which also is going to be an important part. So overall, a lot more companies are going to come to the Indian markets with businesses which we have not seen till now. And similarly in AI, even in the space areas now, India has a very nascent private sector space activities going on. I think this manned flight part, and of course there are many Indian companies which we currently don't know. There are large companies like Godrej or L&T or Mahindras. They provide a lot of equipments for the Indian defense as well as Indian space mission. And those kind of companies will also get a boost. So overall, the large companies in India are going to get benefited, but many small companies like in quantum computing, even in high performance computing, you will see lots and lots more companies coming in. But more importantly, the wealth for me gets created by new technologies. And we were not even in if the US was the kind of the leader in technology, we were not even in the top 10 or top 20 in their list of partners. Today, we are becoming in top 2-3 partners across the world. And when new technologies get developed, those technologies create wealth. And then those wealth will basically will be created out of India by Indian companies. And of course, many of them will come to the stock market. And that's what my fervent hope is, that finally today we have $3.6 trillion or $3.7 trillion of market cap. Over, say, 20 years, if we reach probably 20 trillions, I would be really happy.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I'll request you to stay on with us. Let me also go across to Mr. Handa of Epsilon Carbon, Managing Director of Epsilon Carbon. Epsilon Carbon, remember, is one of the companies which is investing $650 million in electric vehicle battery unit. Mr. Handa, could you give us a sense, have you finalized the company where you would be making this investment? How will this investment be spread out? And how does this help the battery ecosystem, the EV ecosystem back in India as well?
Thank you. So we've been, Epsilon Carbon has been working on developing this technology for the last 4 years. And last year we announced our investment into Karnataka as well. So we're building a graphite anode facility in Karnataka. That's about a 9,000 crore investment spread across the next 8 years. And our aim is to replicate what we're doing in India, in the US as well. We've been working the last year looking at different sites to build this facility. And we want to take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act that is available in the US. And that is what has led us to go there. So today, most of our customers that we are going to be selling our material to are either Korean cell makers or US and European automakers. And it's really the customers that have dragged us to the US. We are in the final stages of site selection. And I hope in the next 30 to 40 days, I can announce this project of the exact location. But our primary goal is to build the facility in India as well to benefit the Indian ecosystem and sell companies here, but also the US companies from the local facility there.
Right. Mr. Handa, so this will be for manufacturing components of EV batteries or electric vehicle batteries?
So we make the graphite anode that goes into making the cell. So lithium-ion cell is about 25% graphite anode by volume. And so that's what we'll be making. We are also evaluating to set up a cathode facility. So we are very much a battery materials company. And we aim to maybe produce about 60% of what goes into a cell. And I think this is where, say, a lot of investments have not gone in outside of China, but not only India, but even Europe and North America, where this processing industry like us, where we are taking a raw material, whether it's flake graphite coming out of the ground from mining or other raw materials, and converting them into battery grade materials that go into the cell. And this processing industry is really the bottleneck for cell manufacturing outside China, because China has such a large lead in this space and have built massive capacities over the last 10 years.
Right. We're going to take a short break, but I'll request Mr. Ashish Chauhan, Mr. Vikram Handa, and Nilesh Shah to continue being with us. We're going to take a short break, but lots more on this program. Welcome back. We are tracking the impact of Prime Minister Modi's visit to the United States and all the deals that were signed. With us right now is Sanjay Nair, General Partner of Soren Partners. Sanjay Nair, I would like to ask you about access to technology and resilient supply chains. These were two pain points for India over the last few years. How do you think we have done and how we will do with the deals that have been signed last week?
India clearly needed technology and cutting-edge technology if India has to accelerate, which I think it will, into the third largest economy in the world. So I would say a whole range of critical initiatives on critical and emerging technologies was, I think, the highlight, frankly. And whether it is on the renewable side, whether it's on climate transition, on AI, I think a lot of good deals were struck. as evidenced, I suppose, by the fact that Micron committed a significant amount of money, and so did Applied Materials and Google's digitization fund. I think those are just early indications of the positive partnership that's emerging in the technology area. I think supply chain, especially on the solar side, is going to be very, very critical. Whether it's huge number of solar technologies, it's the cost reduction, it's carbon capture. There's just a lot that I think is being captured in this visit. I would say we'll see more of these announcements, and I think that is really what India could benefit from. So I think the Prime Minister's visit, as I've said before, was extremely strategic. I think it's much more strategic than one can make out. And I think he's really been pragmatic and practical. And there's obviously an equation that's there between the Indian and the US people. But more than that, I think his personal zeal and zest to go reach out and to talk to the president and to talk to the companies, to reach out to a diverse set of people, I think it's building a different kind of bond. And frankly, these kind of technologies come to you only when you have a huge amount of trust and understanding between each other. So I think it's pretty strategic, and a lot has been achieved. Now let's just see what more we get in terms of announcements and investments.
Right. Nilesh Shah, let me return to you. Thank you for being with us as well. How do you see two-way capital flows increasing as a result of the deal signed? Which sectors make you most excited?
Today, among global investors, earlier there was a trend of MSCI Asia ex Japan. Now there is MSCI emerging market ex China trend emerging. It's an early trend, but it reflects that for 3 decades Chinese market have been delivered good return to investors. This is something which will get cemented thanks to all the positive coverage India has got during Prime Minister's visit. More importantly, as Mr. Vikram Handa was showing, it's a two-way traffic. Our companies are also going and investing in America and creating jobs. It's a win-win situation. If we look at healthcare system, 1/3 of doctors in US is of Indian origin. 45% of medicines consumed by volume is made in India. And cost of healthcare delivery in India is substantially cheaper compared to US. Again, collaboration in this kind of sector will create win-win situation for both the countries. And it is this kind of reason which will facilitate two-way traffic. So overall, this is Jugalbandi or partnership, both for creating win-win for US as well as India.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Shah. We'll request you to stay on with us. Let me also get in a word from Mr. Sanjay Nair and once again talk about the record performance of the markets. Mr. Nair, according to you, this is a question we had put to Mr. Chauhan, and we will be asking Nilesh as well. But what do you think is driving this growth, and how do you see this growth faring in the coming months? Do you think it will sustain?
India is a massive market. I think the growth is coming through, which you saw in the last quarter and the last full year GDP numbers. I think consumption is returning as well, and obviously investments being driven by the government infrastructure spend. I think all of this is coming together nicely. And of course, there's a lot of interest in India overseas, which is why you're also getting such huge amount of stock market flows from the foreigners. So I think it's a combination of things coming together. It's an interesting time for India. So I think the company's performance will do well. I think we can see the market going higher.
Right. Nilesh, we were speaking to Mr. Nair, and Mr. Nair also pointed out that one of the sectors which is possibly going to see the largest amount of investments and focus would be infrastructure. But according to you, how do you see the growth of the markets from here? Do you expect this rally to continue? What are the fundamentals that would drive the growth, and any word of caution that you would like to give us?
So today, our markets are seeing Triveni Sangam of flows, sentiments, and fundamentals. Global as well as local investors are buyers, and the supply from IPO, OFS, QIP hasn't emerged as much. undoubtedly flows are pulling the prices higher. Sentiment is positive towards India because there's hardly any country which has as strong macroeconomic foundation as India has today. We are truly oasis in the global desert. Flows and sentiment can reverse in no time. You need fundamentals to back up the valuation. Today, despite all-time high market, we are not at all-time high valuation. In fact, we are just little above our historical average and at a reasonable premium to our competitors. Will markets continue this trend? We are hopeful. Today, investors are paying premium to enter India because they expect 3G from India. Growth, our earnings growth will be superior to our peer group. Governance, our governance standards and respect for capital will be superior to our peer group. And our economy will transform into green economy. As long as India delivers on this 3G of growth, governance, and green, I think our markets and economy both will do well.
Right. Mr. Chauhan, my final question to you. We've completely run out of time. What are the fundamentals that will drive the growth of markets here onwards? You said it's a big moment for India, and some of it is also because of the Prime Minister's visit to the US. But going forward, what are some of the fundamentals that we will have to watch out for?
In some ways, again, this is for the market people to do it. I think governance is what I worry about. But overall, what I see is that the monsoon has suddenly appeared across India on one single day. And it's a pretty phenomenal day, I think a few days back when Mumbai and Delhi got monsoon on the same day, which is like, at least in my memory, I don't remember when it happened. So overall, despite El Nino, I think monsoon looks good. If monsoon is reasonable, India would certainly do well. Of course, the US tightening and the European monetary tightening needs to be watched. And overall, our own consumption, probably that will be also buoyed by the good monsoon. These are the few immediate factors, but long term, I think the demographic, which is India's sort of on India's side, the technology, the new technology creating newer wealth with young people actually mastering those technologies. Right. India is pretty much there. And so on a 20-30 year scale, I'm pretty sort of impressed by where we have reached and where we will reach. And there might be short-term things which may be positive, like today being a sort of exceedingly good monsoon day. But even if there are some short-term issues, long-term, we are looking really good.
All right. Mr. Chauhan, Nilesh Shah, Vikram Handa and Sanjay Nair, thank you very much for being with us here on CNBC TV 18, giving us your view on the Prime Minister's visit to the United States, which is being touted as unprecedented, and also the rally that we're seeing in Indian markets.